Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday. Hope this finds you really, really well and cheerful today. Now, some lovely suggested favourite hymns yesterday, some absolute beauties in there. Here I Am, Lord came back quite often. I wanted two extra ones as well. One I'd never heard of, which was interesting, it was good. But lovely suggestions, thank you everybody. And so you obviously well know your hymns very well. So thank you very much for that. And any more suggestions, keep them coming, and I'll try and pick them on a Sunday sometime when we're back. Now, the reading for this morning, we're working our way through the Psalms, is Psalm 51. You might say, now for something completely different. And the reason I'm in church today is partly because I can, because I'm allowed to come and say prayers in church again. I'm allowed to stream services in here again, which is good. And partly because, if for those of the choir stops behind me, there are at least two quotes from Evensong in our psalm for this evening. So later on when I read it, if anyone, and especially those in the choir, if you recognise the quotes from Evensong, do please spot them and put them at the comments page at the bottom, see if anyone can spot them. There's at least two Evensong quotes in there. Now, the context of Psalm 51 is kind of particularly important. As I said, totally different to yesterday's. Basically, David, who wrote it, had been a very naughty boy. And when I say a naughty boy, he'd been a very, very naughty boy. He'd really fouled up. But what had happened was, David was a king, and he was also a warrior king as well. And he was in the middle of some battle with the Amalekites, or who were up against somebody. He's up against lots of people at that particular time. And basically, he was home on leave. Whilst his troops were away, fighting the battles, he was at home on leave. And he's kind of chilling out one day, and he looks to the roof of a neighbouring house, and he sees this woman, young, beautiful woman, in the bath. And she's called Bathsheba. Now, you can remember her name, Bathsheba, because he saw her in the bath. Easy way to remember. Anyway, he likes her, goes around, and to cut a long story short, he spends time with her, shall we say. And later on, to his horror, she becomes pregnant. Now, it turns out that she, Bathsheba, is the wife of one of his top commanders, a man called Uriah. And Uriah's a really, really good soldier. But he has this idea, what he does, if he gets Uriah back, and if he can get him to spend time with Bathsheba, then he might be able to blame the pregnancy on her. So that's what he tried on him. So on that. So basically what he does, he calls Uriah back. And Uriah comes back, and because Uriah's troops aren't allowed to have leave and spend time with their wives, Uriah won't spend time with his wife. So the plan doesn't work. So what David does is really nasty. He sends Uriah out to what you might call the Russian front. The inevitable happens, Uriah gets killed, and then David is free to marry Bathsheba, which he duly does. And so far, from his point of view, everything's going fine. But the one person who knows what's going on, the wool he cannot pull over, is the eyes of God. And the thing says, the thing displeased the Lord. And what happens is a guy called Nathan the prophet, who also gets mentioned in that famous piece, Zadok the priest and so on, and Nathan the prophet, same guy, goes to David, tells him a story, and basically tells David, you've been found out. And when he found out, David realises that he's fouled up big time, and that's the context of Psalm 51. And it's a long intro, but you kind of have to get that before you see what's going on. I shall read you now Psalm 51, and watch out for the two quotes from Evensong that are in it, if you can spot them. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love. According to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you alone have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight. So you are justified in your sentence, and blameless when you pass judgment. Indeed, I was born guilty, a sinner when my mother conceived me. You desire truth in the inward being. Therefore teach me wisdom in my secret heart. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you've crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins, and blot out all my iniquities. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and sustain in me a willing spirit. Then I will teach transgressors your ways, and sinners will return to you. Deliver me from bloodshed, O God of my salvation, and my tongue will sing aloud of your deliverance. O Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall declare your praise. For you have no delight in sacrifice. If I were to give a burnt offering, you'd not be pleased. The sacrifice acceptable to God is a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. Do good to Zion in your good pleasure. Rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Then you will delight in right sacrifices. In burnt offerings and whole offerings, then bulls will be offered on your altar. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And I suppose, friends, the message here is quite a simple one, that David had fouled up. He displeased the Lord. He had committed adultery. Not only that, he'd actually been responsible to murder, had responded from this as well. And so he basically behaved deceitfully and badly, and God had found him out. And in reality, friends, there's no hiding from God. There's no hiding place. What do we say on a Sunday morning? To whom all hearts are open, all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hidden. God knows everything. Which I suppose tells us that, as David found when he fouled up, the only way to come to God is just as you are, hiding nothing. You know, no secrets in the inward heart, in the inward parts. Come before God just as you are, and say, look, you know, sometimes we have to say, look, I've messed up. I make no excuses. I don't blame anybody else. Here I am, and I throw myself entirely upon your mercy. And I think that's what it means by the sacrifice of God is a broken and contrite, a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. And that there are times when we just have to come before God and say, here I am. I'm a sinner. Have mercy. And I suppose the good thing, the wonderful thing with God is that if we come to God like that, God forgives us. David was forgiven. You know, there was a way back for him, you know. He married Bathsheba, and she went on, and she's mentioned in genealogies later in the Bible. You know, it came good in the end. But the only way he could come before God is just as he was, and say, here I am, Lord. I'm sorry. I throw myself at your mercy. And the same is true with us, my friends, as well. You know, there's no hiding from God. When we do foul up, as we all do, because we're all human, just come before God and say, here I am. Have a lovely day. Enjoy Wednesday.